Okay. So we are going to have our October ISNS wisdom, and for tonight topic is a topic is very interesting topic, and I believe it's from the new book from Michael also. But before for the detail, we welcome the institute from all around the world. Let's start to let me share first. Okay, that's welcoming. I will start first, and then I will take turns with Sean. Okay, let's give your best sound, your best welcome each other when I said your institute. Okay, so let's first with the first one from Institute of Neurosemantic Africa. Give me your sound from the Africa. Yay!
Yeah! Hello!
Yay!
Para
Good.
Paniji! Hello, hello!
Love to see you
Hello.
all. And the next one. Ah,
Okay, and the next one is the Institute of NeuroSemantics Australia.
hello.
Yay! I'm the only one awake this time. Hello.
12 p.m.
And okay,
Hello.
the next one is Institute of Neurosemantic Brazil.
Uhul! Brasil! Brasil!
Yay! And I
Good
believe
morning!
Yay!
there's
Kenya.
more on another room, right? Yes. Okay, and the
Okay,
next
and
one?
the next one is the Institute for Egypt, Middle East, and North Africa.
Ooh.
Hello.
Way,
Whoa.
Hello, hello.
Oh, hello, hello.
Okay, and the next one is Institute of Neurosemantic Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. And the next one?
The next one is the Institute of Neurosemantics Hong Kong and China.
Yay, hello.
Hello.
大家好.
Hello!
你好. Okay, and the next one is Institute of Neurosemantic Indonesia. Halo, apa kabar?
Bye-bye.
Hello,
Hi.
hello!
Hello.
Okay, and the next one?
Okay, the next one, Institute of Neurosemantics Latam.
Hola.
Hola.
Hola!
Hola,
Good
hola.
morning.
Hola!
Okay, and the next one is Institute of Neurosemantic Malaysia.
And Philippines and
Woohoo!
Thailand. And
So
Yes!
representing India, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam.
hello there.
Woo.
Okay,
We have another one, Yudi.
yeah,
And the next one is Institute of Neurosemantics USA.
yeah.
Hey, all three of
Yeah!
us.
And before go to Sean to introduce Michael, I believe we still miss one of the institute that's still not in the slide. Is the Institute of Mauritius.
Yes,
Mauritius.
it was in the
Yay,
first
Mauritius.
slide.
Oh, it's on
In
the
the
first
first,
slide?
we
Oh,
went.
okay.
Yes, yes.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, bonjour.
Bonjour.
We can say it
Bonjour.
again.
Welcome.
Everyone is Mauritian now.
Yes.
Yay.
Okay. So please, Sean.
Okay, and so today we would love to welcome our amazing facilitator, Dr. Michael Hall, Executive Director of Institute of Neurosemantics and co-founder also of the Neurosemantics and the MetaCoach system. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Sean. Well, today we're going to talk about a form of thinking that is not a form of thinking. That is, as soon as you do unconscious thinking, the thinking becomes kinesthetic. And so while we usually think of thinking as conscious awareness, when thinking goes deep, something tremendous happens to it. And we continue to think, but in a very, very different way. And it will determine your wellness, your health, your your illness and ill health. And so the consequences of neurological thinking um, is quite expansive. So as we start with these slides, the theme is when thinking goes deep. And as we get our first slide up there, I'll start with the thinking series that we've been doing. and will continue to do for a while. Our deep dive into thinking has made us aware that conscious thinking is actually responsible for everything human. Think about anything that really matters and counts to us as human beings, and it is created by our thinking. And so thinking gives us awareness of the world. And so we go to representational thinking. To take control of the mind, we start accessing editorial thinking, the submodalities, and how we can alter the pictures and the movies that we play in our mind, bring them closer, send them away, make them louder, make them quieter. And when you know that, when you know that you can edit your movies, you're no longer stuck with your thoughts. If you have a thought and you don't like it, you can change it, you can transform it. And that begins to give us control over our mind and our emotions so that we to be at mercy of our mind. And just because we experienced something in the past doesn't mean we're stuck with it. So the next part of thinking as we move up the meta levels is languaging. And the power of languaging is to classify things. And when you classify it, that thing becomes a member of that category. And in this way, we develop understandings about things. In every science, every discipline that any course at any university presents is classified in a certain way. And there's levels and levels of that classification that creates the whole levels of concepts. Thinking gives us beliefs. When we shift to the second level of thinking, thinking about our thinking, we draw a conclusion and create a confirmation of that first thought, and it becomes a belief. That's what we talked about last month, belief thinking. And after we get to beliefs in the hierarchy of our mind, in the meta place where we have 100 different ways to think, every one of them is a belief. A value is a belief in what you think is important. A decision is what you believe you should choose. A memory is what you believe you remember. An imagination is what you believe you can anticipate. So it's all beliefs, beliefs all the way up. And as we look at the thinking series and understanding about thinking, what tremendous thinking power you and I have if only we can access it. That's our next slide. Thinking power. And an old proverb really summarizes this: as you think, so you are. So you feel, so you speak, so you act, so you relate. Everything comes from these thinking powers. Therefore, how you think and your thinking patterns determines the quality of your life. And as you well know, the quality of your thinking determines the quality of your relationships, the quality of your productivity, the quality of your effectiveness, your efficiency. Everything comes from the quality of our thinking. Now, for this one on neurological thinking, our next slide, we're going to consider this question: when is thinking not thinking? And of course, the answer is when it's repeated over and over and over, and it drops out of conscious awareness and it becomes neurological. Then it becomes automatic and unconscious. So thinking continues as it drops into our neurology, and yet now it's more outside of our control. We'll figure out a little bit later on how to bring it into our control. But when you repeat something, it drops out of conscious awareness and becomes unconscious. So the principle is this: because conscious thinking is so limited, it seeks to become unconscious. I didn't know that until I started this study and the research for when thinking goes deep. Conscious thinking seeks to become unconscious. So to explain that, we have to go to the explanation of the limitation of thinking. And here's a question in our next slide. is all thinking unconscious. And I put a baby up there in that picture, and the next slide answers this question. The answer is yes if you're a baby, and all your thinking is unconscious. But if you're a child or a teenager or adult, then the answer is no. You are conscious, or at least you have the possibility of being conscious. And being conscious seems like the most powerful thing we have, because with conscious awareness, now you can make choices and you can do things. And yet, the problem with consciousness is its limitations. So, our next slide. NLP started with this understanding from George Miller. He wrote a paper in 1956, 7 plus or minus 2, the magic number. And 7 minus plus or minus 2 bits of information is pretty much the limit of consciousness. Isn't that amazing? You can keep 5 to 9 pieces of information in your mind at a single time. Add more to that, more pieces of information, we get overloaded. Uh, have someone tell you their phone number, the 10 digits, and then have someone else give you their 10-digit phone number, and now try to keep in mind all 20 digits. It can be quite overwhelming. So, if consciousness is so limited, here's a question. How do we explain the fact that each of us knows so much if we can only uh, maintain 5 to 7 bits of storage at a time? Well, the answer is storage. And storage explains the neurological thinking that we do. So, our next slide, we store knowledge unconsciously. So, we go to how we learn, and one of the most basic forms of learning is associative learning. And this comes from Donald Hebb, a neuroscientist from Canada, who many, many years ago said when neurons fire together, they wire together. And that can create some really strange associative meanings in our lives, because those meanings can happen by accident. You're experiencing one thing, something else happens, and they get associated, they get connected. And so this is how we start storing knowledge unconsciously. The neurons are wiring together. This is especially true for procedural memory. Any kind of memory that you have to know step 1, step 2, step 3, and so typing is a good example. Typing on a keyboard, you learn the procedure, you learn where the keys are, or you learn on a piano where the keys are, and you can play the scale. So once the body associates a key with a letter, which is a concept, then that association is stored in your body. Now, your body knows something. So, what does your body know? Well, if you've learned different things, different sports, playing tennis, playing basketball, roller skating, riding a bike, driving a car, those kinds of physical activities, your body now has learned and it's storing that knowledge. So, all you have to do is to activate the program, get on a bicycle, sit behind a steering wheel in a car, and the program is there. So, you don't have to know it consciously. Unconsciously, you know it. So you're thinking unconsciously at this point, and this describes a little bit about the neurology of how all of this works. So next slide, say hello to your unconscious. Say hello to the part of your mind that keeps in mind what you've learned and experienced. So even though we can only consciously maintain 5 to 9 pieces of information, maybe a little bit more if you train your short-term memory, but for the most part, what you know is stored neurologically in different parts of the body, and your body knows that. So the unconscious holds and stores what you know, thereby revealing all sorts of knowledge and learnings and understandings and beliefs. And so here in your unconscious mind are memories and programs and inferences and intuitions and and body regulations and survival patterns and tabooed information, just all kinds of things. So now for misunderstanding. The next slide I captured on the internet, this picture, and the question in the picture, what is the unconscious mind? And this begins the misunderstanding. The misunderstanding is that there is an unconscious mind and there's a conscious mind, as if there's two minds. But that's the misunderstanding. There's only one mind. So let's ask a question. What is this unconscious aspect of our intelligence? So the next slide. When we use the word unconscious, it sounds like a thing, but it's not. It's a process. Actually, it's many processes within your neurology. You have many nervous systems. In a couple of the books I've written, I've identified 16 different nervous systems, or you could say neural systems, systems of neurons operating in a certain way. So here we have a list: the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, which puts you into fight, flight, and helps you to protect against threats; a parasympathetic system, in which you relax and let go; the central nervous system, the peripheral, the immune system, which is a very strange nervous system, neural system that we have inside of ourselves that helps us to determine self, not self; the endocrine system, and the enteric system, which is the gut system of digestion. So, what is the unconscious? It's also your memory, long-term memory, habits, associative learnings, language. Where do you store that in your mind? Regressive states and repressed states. So we have in the unconscious lots of learnings and intelligences. Our next slide gets to the theme of really what I want to talk about today, and that is thinking transforms into something else when it goes deep. What we think of as conscious thinking, the ability to represent information in the theater of our mind, completely changes its form when it goes inside. It's no longer frontal lobe thinking, it's feeling. It's kinesthetic sensations, which thereby enable the body to know what it knows. Now, we call this by different names and different terms: gut feelings, intuitions, feeling something in your bones, insight. We have lots of different terms for when thinking goes deep, and we'll be identifying some of these as we go on. But to correct the misinformation and to get things set straight, the next slide, actually, you only have one singular mind. And to understand this, then we have to begin by exploding the myth that there is an unconscious mind and an unconscious mind. Growing up for the last 40 years in the field of NLP, this language is how we talk about it, and it comes so quickly to us. I have to keep stopping myself and correcting myself. There is not an unconscious mind in contradistinction to the conscious mind. We just have a singular mind. A small part, very small part, is conscious, and the much larger part is unconscious. I don't know the statistics of it. Maybe 5% is conscious, 95% unconscious. Could be 98% is unconscious. But these are two aspects of the mind, and these two aspects we can put on a continuum, the CU, conscious, unconscious continuum of the mind. So the one mind has two functions. That's our next slide. And this begins to really sort out and I think give us some understanding about the two aspects of your mind. Your conscious mind, it functions as a search engine. It searches, it explores, it questions. With your conscious mind, you can doubt, You can make distinctions. You can develop understanding. You can represent. There's all kinds of things. The unconscious mind, you can't do that stuff. The unconscious mind has a knowing or a feeling function that records, that stores, that holds in place as a program. And therefore, from that program, implements and actualizes the program. So, two very different functions. One is a search engine, the other is a storage engine. And so, together, they make up your total intelligence. So, with this distinction, now we can start sorting out the kind of thinking you're doing in each of these aspects of your mind. The next slide is one I found on the internet, and this is how some people frame the things. And there's a lot of correctness to this, but there's also some real errors in this. For instance, whoever put this slide together put emotions over under unconscious, as if you're not conscious of your emotions or you don't consciously create your emotions. That would be a real problem in NLP when we say, think about something where you're really joyful, confident, or playful, or loving. Think about something in which you feel fear. All that's done consciously. Now, unconsciously, there's all kinds of patterns going on for how you know how to feel those emotions. But emotions is on both sides and not just on the unconscious side. Um, Creativity is also on the conscious side. You can create things. I mean, just like I do. So instead of this distinction, the next couple slides gives the distinctions that I'd like to make. And so you see on the far left side, consciousness searches and explores, unconscious records and remembers. So with your conscious mind, you have the power of questions. And with the power of questions, you can um, directionalize the brain. You can find out what's really deeply inside. It is one of the most incredible powers you and I have. On the other side, the unconscious just operates. It takes whatever you give it, and this is the danger. It takes whatever you give it and it operates it. We'll see more of that here in a bit. Conscious, we got choice and will, choice point. But on the unconscious level, we've got what's automatic, what's been programmed. And I think this is the programming part of neurolinguistic programming. We got the decider part and the performer part. We've got the predictive part in terms of looking at trends consciously and thinking, and then unconsciously, we start forecasting and doing some things we shouldn't be doing, expecting, mind reading, prophesying the future. Consciously, we have long-term plans. The unconscious does not have long-term plans because it doesn't think strategically. That's the job of the conscious mind. Um, Conscious mind has short-term memory, and that we can hold in mind for a few seconds, or if you develop it, a few minutes, or even hours. You can hold your short-term memory. So, conscious mind, we can turn inside and reflect. It's introspective. But that's not the case with the unconscious mind. The programs are, as it were, burned into the circuitry. Our next slide continues this. So that here we have the conscious being slow and cognitive and rational. And the unconscious, that's where we do our fast thinking. That's automatic, maybe reactive. With the conscious mind, you can turn it on and off. Not so with the unconscious. It's always on, even when you're sleeping. And then it's going to do crazy things like dreaming. Conscious mind, the first phase of learning is to take interest in something. For the unconscious mind, the last phase of learning is installing whatever you learn. So we got the contrast between exploring and integrating, between being open and flexible and rigid and inflexible. The conscious mind goes after what is new and novel and uncertain and innovative. The unconscious mind recording and storing and programming in is an older system, and it's establishing the familiar or the dangerous. So we have creativity in both aspects of the mind, just in different ways. And the next slide picks this up a little bit further and adds a few more. Conscious mind is open to revision. The unconscious mind is not directly open to revision, but is quite biased because it is programmed from what you've already learned. With a conscious mind, you can do some trail blazing. The unconscious mind is just reinforcing what you've learned. The conscious mind, you're self-reflexive. You can start to monitor and regulate and control yourself, your thoughts, your emotions, your responses. The unconscious mind is not self-aware. A conscious mind comes online, especially when something violates our expectations, our beliefs, our understandings, and we get surprised. Consciousness comes online, and we become conscious, and we start thinking. Whereas the unconscious, it is just functioning as it's expected to function. So lots of contrasts. And now the next slide will have the continuum. So you see the line there from conscious to unconscious. And conscious is mostly objective. The unconscious is entirely subjective. It is not in touch with the outside world. It is integrating our inside work. So conscious is asking what's possible, and the unconscious is accessing the impossible as if. So we can run some as if programs there to try to shake it open. So you can see the differences between conscious and unconscious, and it's a continuum. So we can be anywhere along that line as it moves further along. To correct another misbelief, and you'll see this everywhere in psychology books, on the internet, is the Freudian model. So our next slide gives a picture of what Sigmund Freud did in trying to create a model of the mind. He talked about it as a big iceberg, and that what's conscious is above the water, just a little bit of the conscious mind, and then below it is the subconscious mind. That was his language. And then finally, the unconscious. What we do in neurosemantics is quite different. So over on the right, you'll see in the middle, consciousness. Above consciousness, at meta levels, are all the things you've forgotten in your mind. Some of them can be brought back into awareness. Most cannot. It is also the habits that you've created, maybe also what's been prohibited, that you now need to give yourself permission. And so when you go meta into many of the meta states, you're going into what is the unconscious. It's not conscious. It's outside of your conscious awareness. And as you go there, you can become aware of your beliefs, your values, your permissions, your prohibitions, your memories, your anticipations. So that's the unconscious. It's the meta stuff. So that's the meta place. Now, below consciousness, what is actually truly subconscious, it's so deeply into the neurology that it's inaccessible. So there is no way that we can become aware of how our brain, the six visual cortexes of the brain and the retina of the eyes brings in information from outside and creates visual images inside of our mind. It's inaccessible. Our next slide, from conscious to unconscious. So here's the insight that we started with. Your conscious thinking can control what you input into your unconscious. And that's going to be the key. Your conscious thinking, by means of that, you can control what's in your unconscious. And we'll have lots of slides here in just a little bit to detail that out in more specifics. Via your conscious mind, you can determine and select and govern what and how you want your body to feel, your body to operate, and to feel an idea or a principle. In neurosemantics, we do the mind to muscle pattern. We start with think about a principle that you know is true, but you don't feel it in your body. And the mind to muscle pattern is a way to create that integration so your body can feel that idea or that principle and then just make it accessible to you whenever you need it. So to effectively manage your mind, here's a summary of what we know in neurosemantics, our next slide. So take charge of what you put into your conscious, unconscious mind. Develop awareness of its content. And as you do, keep learning, unlearn what's not useful, update what needs to be corrected using feedback. Keep it current and clean. Respect its power and potential. Because its power and its potential, what you put into your conscious, unconscious mind will determine your health, your well-being, your fitness, your illness, your diseases, the autoimmune system diseases. So respecting its power and its potential, embrace it with acceptance, and then develop your intuitions. So we'll be getting into all of this here as we continue. So that's to effectively manage your mind. And isn't that what NLP started out to do and to be, to run your own brain? Well, now we can be much more specific about how that works. Our next slide, the secret of intuitions, because I know I'm going to get this question. What about intuitions? Well, the word intuit literally means to know inside, to know immediately, and to know apart from rational conscious analysis, is to know. Since we're born with no knowledge, no ideas, no understanding, then everything you know, you learn. So that's how you got it inside. Your intuitions were learned. Repetition, the mother of all learning, drove deep inside what you know today intuitively, whether it's functional or dysfunctional. If you were raised in a dysfunctional family, an alcoholic family, in a domestic abusive family, then you learned and integrated that knowledge into yourself, even though it's dysfunctional knowledge. When you get around normal people, it doesn't, you have intuitions that something's wrong. And it is wrong to what you've learned, to your intuitions. Intuitions can therefore be false and can be or can be true. It depends upon where the context and the environment you learned it. So training our intuitions is our next slide. How do we do that? Well, by education. If all of our intuitions are learned, then as you develop competence and skills, as you repeat your skills and your learning in a stable environment, then you can develop intuitions with expertise. And that's going to require you setting intentions, you doing deliberate practice, and giving yourself years of attention to that. Then your body will intuitively know how to function effectively in a given context. If you read the early books of NLP, Richard and John, in those first two books, constantly said things like this. Virginia Satir, over 40 years, trained her intuitions about family systems and about communication. And by the time we met her, her intuitions were so finely tuned that she could just pick up in an instant what was going on with people as she encountered people in counseling. And what we're doing in NLP is modeling her intuitions. They said the same thing about Fritz Perls, that he had trained for 40 years, his intuitions about Gestalt processes and principles. And they were going to model his intuitions. They said the same thing about Milton Erickson, that he had had all of this life experience that made him intuitive about healing processes, and they were going to model his intuitions. So intuitions are trained. You and I can train our intuitions and develop our unconscious intelligence. Our next slide, conscious thoughts repeated often enough become unconscious thinking. And that's what we're talking about. So our next slide, the unconscious part, that's your programming. It does not function like conscious thinking with searches and questions and tests. It just runs the programs that you've put in there or that you received from childhood, from schooling, from your environment, from relationships with other people. Your unconscious just runs those programs. So here's some personal questions for us to dive into. What programs are your unconscious thinking running? What programs does your body know and habitually default to? So if this is how it works, then now we can start asking these questions. So when thinking goes deep, deep inside, one of two things can happen. That's our next slide. So when it's going well, your thoughts now help your body to be regulated in an effective way. You have good blood pressure. The heart functions and beats at 50 to 60 beats a minute resting rate. Lungs are working fine. When it's going well, you recognize things that you've already learned and you have access to it. So you can recall on demand. You have developed effective skills, maybe some expert skills. You have intuition as expert hunches. There's creativity. There's eureka moments of insight. When it's not going so well, it's when it's going to hell. Now you can see all the things that will occur if we're not doing good neurological unconscious thinking. We're going to suffer illnesses and diseases, especially the autoimmune system diseases. We will have problems with our memory, unhealthy habits, personality disorders. Our intuitions will be flawed. We'll feel blocked and stuck in circular thinking. So that's how things could go really, really wrong if you're not doing good neurological thinking. Our next slide. Let's back up to our inputs. And these 7 descriptions here describe what you're inputting into your unconscious. How do you input stuff into your unconscious? Well, as you think about your experiences, that's self-reflexive consciousness. And as you reflect about your experiences, do you do good thinking or cognitive distortions? Awfulizing, overgeneralizing, personalizing, that kind of stuff. What thinking patterns are you using? What kind of meaning making, pattern recognition are you doing? What kind of emoting? Is it emotional intelligence, awareness of your emotions and monitoring your emotions and regulating your emotions? We input things by how we do inferential thinking and listening, by the beliefs that we attain, and the metaphors we use. So we are the inputters. You are every single day inputting things into your unconscious. The next slide. Is your unconscious mind, what is your unconscious mind telling you about yourself? So, next slide. When you think you're learning and you do most of your inputting as you learn things. Every single day, you and I are learning things. We read, we study, we watch people, we talk about things. And as we do, we're drawing conclusions. We're learning. We're drawing a conclusion that this is the way things are. And whatever you learn, the quality of that input is going to be the quality of your life. So the warning for all of us is if you learn something stupid, false, dysfunctional, guess what's going to happen? So we need to learn how to do executive learning. We need to sometimes run the unlearning pattern so that we can get some of the old learnings out of our system. So it begins with thinking. Whatever you're reading today, whatever movies you're watching, whatever internet that you're scrolling through, that's going to be inputted into your unconscious. So be careful what you input through your thinking. As you believe, so you input. That's our next slide. As you believe. So I think we should, no, yeah, this is the one. When you emote, you input. So be careful about your emoting. Your emotions and the quickness of your emotions and the quickness of your mind to put your body into state is the fastest way to input things into your unconscious. And it is wrong as often as it is useful. So if we get ourselves riled up, get into stressful states, get angry, get afraid, if it's unrealistic, we are inputting those unrealistic emotions into our body. So we have to really be careful about your emotional responses to the world. So let your thinking guide your emoting. So use your thinking, do critical thinking, use your conscious mind to search and explore and question. And then at the bottom of this screen, welcome all emotions and find out their message. The negative emotions are useful because they help you put on the brakes and to stop and look and listen and make a change. Don't live in the negative emotion. Experience it, let it go. For the positive emotions, they're like the accelerator in a car. You put your foot on it, the pedal on the metal, and you can live in that. So this is love and joy and compassion and curiosity and playfulness. So give yourself to those emotions. The more you give yourself to those emotions, you'll input that into your body, and those are healing emotions. Those will bring healing and health and wellness and longevity to your body. It'll give you energy. If you find that you don't have a lot of energy, you might be riding your brakes and you need to get your foot off the brake and stop the negative emotional inputting, because if you do that over time, it's going to use up your energy and you'll be living in a state of fatigue. The next slide is when you believe, as you believe, you input. So emotions is the quick way to input things into your body. Believing is a little bit slower way, but every day you and I are assaulted by all sorts of beliefs. The media, friends, family, schools, books, everywhere we turn, we are assaulted by all sorts of beliefs. And hear it again and again and again, and you'll be tempted to take that on as a belief and to start thinking that that conclusion is real. But beliefs are not innocent. Beliefs can be exceedingly dangerous. And that's why in neurosemantics, we spend a lot of time looking at limiting beliefs and toxic beliefs to get them out of our system, because that belief functions and works like a command to your nervous system. Your nervous system doesn't know that it's not true. Once you code it as a belief, as a confirmation of your thoughts, then your nervous systems will try to actualize them. And that's what makes them extremely dangerous. So know your beliefs, know your beliefs hierarchies. That takes you into the unconscious part. So take the belief. Let's say you believe that you can't learn something. What do you believe about that? And you're going to have a higher level belief that's probably more limiting, maybe even more toxic. The next slide offers the next one, and this is inferential thinking. As you infer things, this inferring is how we think. As you infer things, you're drawing conclusions about what lies beyond and above what is presented explicitly, and you're drawing a conclusion. You're inferring. And what you infer, you input into your body. So every day, you and I, we are inferring beliefs, assumptions, intentions, emotions. So we have to be careful because most of this occurs at an unconscious level. We're not even aware that we're drawing an inference. So we have to be aware of our inferential thinking and to challenge it. And the best tool I know for challenging it is looking at the language distinctions of the meta model. The meta model helps us to call into question the ill-formedness of some of our inferences. But whatever you infer, you input. And the next one, as you metaphor, so you input. We do this all the time because to think is to think using the hidden structures of a metaphor. So unconsciously, we take the framing structure of something that we know and we apply it to something we don't know. And so metaphors, be really careful about the metaphors, become conscious of them. If you say that work is like living in the jungle, then you're taking the structure of a jungle and you're applying it to the work environment. And now you're going to see it through that framework, through that filter. So be careful of your metaphorical thinking. Ask yourself the question, what metaphors am I using? What comparisons am I unconsciously making between things? And your metaphorical thinking, you can flesh it out by asking, what is it like? What is going to the gym like? What is budgeting money like? What is dealing with a child that's having a tantrum? What is it like? And whatever metaphors you come up with, you're thinking in those metaphors, and those metaphors are going to input information into your body, and it may not be useful. This is where organ language sometimes is very telling. He'll be the death of me. She's such a pain in the neck. My stomach turns every time I think about. So metaphors. And then finally, as you make meaning, so you input. And of course, that's our primary job as human beings. We make meaning. We're meaning makers. You invent an interpretation about your experiences, and whatever you construct, that's your inside reality. It becomes your model of the world. And now you're inputting it as if that's real. And that map may not take you where you want to go. It may be quite distorted. So be careful about how you make meaning and become conscious of that. So as a summary, our next slide, as you input, so you are. Now you know why your thinking is so critical, so crucial to well-being, to sanity, to your effectiveness, to being productive, really to everything human. True thinking, that's going to be the key, and it'll determine how you frame and classify things. So as you input, so you are. Your inputs, and in our next slide, your outputs tell the story. So what are you outputting? As you input, so you output. What goes in is that which comes out. So look at your kinesthetic outputs, your feelings, your emotions, your moods, your states, your attitudes. What kinesthetically are you outputting? What inputs have created that? What kinesthetic outputs would you like to stop outputting? Look at your habits. what do you habitually just do, just as a matter of fact, something automatic? And those outputs, if the habit is not effective, you habitually always put off doing something. You habitually always avoid healthy eating. You whatever the habit is. And so looking at that, that's an output. And if you don't like the habit, we can change that. Blind spots. Um, this is something that you're outputting that you won't be able to catch. You'll need someone else to help you identify that blind spot. Stress patterns. You output that. If you're outputting high level stress patterns and all the signs and signals of stress, it's coming from somewhere. It's coming from whatever you're inputting. And on the positive side, we can output expertise if you're inputting it. So the next slide, all of this is speaking about a big mystery, and we're just beginning to understand conscious, unconscious continuum and how it works. Your neurological life, in our next slide, is your experience in and with your body. And when thinking goes deep, it goes into your body, your kinesthetics. Therefore, the health and well-being of your body depends to a great extent on your conscious, unconscious mind. And your mind depends upon those inputs. So we're ready for questions. Next slide.
Okay, so it's a question session, Sean.
I think there's two questions in the chat, Yudi.
Okay.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Geraldine. I have two quick questions. The first question is regarding the part that you were explaining the iceberg, and there was the part that you were saying that there is an unaccessible mind or unaccessible part. What did you mean by unaccessible? Does that mean there is a part in my mind I cannot access, or what?
Exactly. Gregory Bateson spent a lot of time writing about how complex sight is.
Okay.
To see. You got 6 visual cortexes in your brain that processes visual information, and you have no conscious awareness of them. Nor do you have conscious awareness of the hole in the center of your eye. Your brain fills in that hole. That's why we don't see the hole.
Okay.
All of that's totally unconscious. In fact, it's not unconscious, it's subconscious, and you can't get there.
Okay, and does any damage that there is this part that I cannot access?
No, it's the way it's the way you work as a human being.
Okay.
If you had to be conscious of how you see things, talk about how much extra work that would be in just walking through the world perceiving things. Our
Okay.
perceptual system is built so that it saves us so much time and energy and effort. You don't have to try to perceive anything. You open your eyes and you perceive. You open your ears and you hear.
Okay. So I don't have to know how is this done. Okay, so got this part. The other thing that when you are saying that there is, we have only one mind, and it's a singular mind. It's not two minds. Okay. I have an assumption. So first, I need to validate the assumption, and if the assumption is true, then is my question. The assumption is, since we are doing the distinction, then there is maybe a side effect of not doing the distinction, that they're one, not two. So this assumption is true, that there is a side effect that seeing them as two, not one. Is this assumption true?
Well, if you divide your intelligence into 2 minds,
Yeah.
Number one, you're creating a dichotomy, a separation, a polarization of yourself. Why do that? Your
Okay.
intelligence is a singular intelligence, and it has two aspects. They work together. One searches, one records.
Okay. So what was the me seeing them as singular? What is the advantage of seeing it as singular then?
Well, if it's singular, then my unconscious mind does not do anything that my conscious mind did not program it to do.
Okay. Okay.
Your conscious mind is the input system that programs your unconscious mind. Now you can take control of your unconscious mind, not directly, but
Okay.
indirectly.
Okay. So I got my answer. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Manuel. Michael, we might just do one more quick question before we go to some Zoom room breakout sessions. Joyce is asking in the chat, what kind of thinking or input could have allergies as an output?
Well, that would be the immune system. The immune system protects you from everything that's not you. And so the immune system is the immune system that can detect allergies and that can create allergies. And we have one pattern, the allergy cure pattern that Robert Dilts, Tim Halbram put together that can address that question to some extent. It's not a perfect pattern, doesn't work all the time, but that's the immune system at work. And when the immune system gets all messed up, because you don't know yourself from others, and you're over responsible, you're under responsible, you don't have good boundaries, you do not have a good solid sense of self and accept self, appreciate self, validate self. If you don't do all of that stuff, your immune system, it's amazing. There's one singular intelligence. That consciousness can cause your unconscious immune system now to create all kinds of allergies and immune system diseases.
Okay, great. Thanks, Michael. So what we might do, just because we're running out of time, is we might jump into the breakout rooms and then we'll come back and answer some further questions at the end. So Yudi, if you can share the presentation again for us, please. On slide 42, we have the Zoom room first experience.
And before we go to, okay, yeah. So this is the question we are going to ask. But later on, before we go into the Zoom, before I create the Zoom room, I think we're going to take the picture first. And then later on, we are going to have information from Anthony about the Malaysia event. And then we go to the Zoom. Okay, so we take the picture first.
Okay.
So everybody, make sure you turn on your camera and give us your best smile. Okay. Get ready, everyone. Please turn on your camera and please don't chat anymore. Okay, let me take the first slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's one. Okay, then let me take another one. Okay. Okay, let me do another. Okay, that's only two slides. It's great. Now, Anthony, do you want to share something before we go to the breakout room?
Yes, thank you, Yudi. Just to announce to everyone in the room that Michael Hall is going to be in Malaysia in November 13 to the 15th for Thinking for Humans and 17 to the 19th for Resilience Mastery. And tonight we're just going to announce that there will be also online access available, live streaming. And Jeffrey helped me with putting in the link. So if you need to find out anything more about that, we've been sending a lot of emails around to everyone regarding the programs. But tonight we'd like to announce that there will be live Zoom streaming access. And Jeffrey, could you post the link in the chat? And you click on the link and it tells you everything about the live streaming.
Okay.
Done, Jeffrey? Good. Thank you. Thank you, Yuri.
Okay, so let's go to the Zoom, and there's a two question that you need to discuss in the Zoom room. The first one is what insight have you gained in this presentation about neurological thinking? And how will you use that insight enable you to do more clear and accurate thinking this network? What difference will it make? Okay, let's zoom into the breakout room.
So while Yudi's getting us all set up for the breakout room, you may want to take a screenshot of the questions, at least one person, and who knows who will be in which room. So if we at least grab the questions so we can have a great discussion in our breakout rooms. How long will we have Yudi in the Zoom room experience?
It's 10 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. See you all.
Where do they have us?
Do you already in the room? Okay, let me check. Supposed to be. Okay. Halo Bu Gioni.
Padahal tadi mencuri-curi waktu breakout room untuk kerjain yang lain. Terus kenapa terus dipindah ya sama Yudi ya? Ada apa di ruang 6 ya?
Ini nggak tahu
Ternyata gue diculik.
yang lain Bu Andin ada Rani sama Cekotim juga saya pindahin ke grup 6. Tapi
Terus,
belum accept nih kayaknya.
oh, bukannya udah mau habis nih sekarang?
Ya bentar lagi sih, tinggal 3 menit lagi.
Yud, berarti kalau yang kayak CEO, ujuk-ujuk di ruang meeting dia bilang, enggak ah nih targetnya kekecilan,
Hmm.
naikin jadi naikin 70% gitu.
Hmm.
Itu sounds like intuisi kah atau apa unconscious ya, tapi itu tacit knowledge yang berarti unconscious yang ditrain gitu ya.
Ya, kalau memang tepat ya, maksudnya kalau memang yang udah, kalau tadi dia bilang intuition train ya unconscious yang sudah ditrain, jadi yang
Mm-mm.
sudah memang terlatih ya. Jadi
Hmm.
ini interesting. Sebenarnya yang paling menarik bagi saya ya terkait dengan kita punya tubuh. Jadi kinesthetic thinking ya. Jadi sebenarnya kalau kita punya feeling, kita punya tubuh kalau sakit gitu ya. Ambil contoh misalnya Bu Giotni punya tensi tinggi. Berarti ini ada
Ya,
it's like the expression of kita punya how we put input ya gitu.
sebenarnya itu konsep state juga kan, di mana mind and body system kan.
Ya, benar.
Tet- Hmm.
Cuman di sini kan dia bahas lebih spesifik ke apa kinesthetic feelingnya kita kan. Jadi tubuh
Hmm.
kita unconscious continuum lah ya apa antara conscious sama unconscious. Lalu kemudian bagaimana yang punya
Oh.
unconscious itu lebih ke hasil program ya. Jadi program itu udah jadi bentuknya unconscious. Kalau tidak well
Hmm.
program yang dia sebut going to hell itu kan salah satunya adalah illness apa
Ya,
beberapa hal kan yang dia tadi sebutin gitu.
illness, disease kan penyakit atau
Ya,
autoimun.
hmm,
Hmm.
oke, interesting sih. Kita udah. Silakan melanjutkan kerjaan kembali, eh, Bu Gion. Ini perlu selesaikan dulu breakout roomnya.
Baik, baik, baik. Oke deh.
Oke, see
Nggak
you.
live dong ya. Berarti apa nih?
Ya, lift saya mau close.
Live break.
Mm-mm. Hello, welcome back everyone. Hello, Feli.
Hi, Yudi.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, will I see you in Malaysia?
Yeah,
See you there.
yeah. Sean, are we going to the answers one or two question before we go to the second one? Hello,
Sorry, I was on mute. Yep. No, great idea, Yudi.
Okay. Okay, Sean, please. Or we going to check. So welcome back, everyone. So how is it going into the breakout room session? Any insight want to share before Sean will lead to the Q&A session? Anybody want to share something from your group?
I have a question.
Oh, okay. Please, Jacob.
We were talking in our group about learning and unlearning. We were talking about this with allergies, which also have to do with our mind and what is going on in our mind, and how important it is with being able to work with unlearning. And that's really a theme I would like to know more about.
So that's in the book Executive Thinking. It's in the book Learning for Humans, Thinking for Humans. It's in the manual for Brain Camp #1, Thinking for Humans. So we've got that pattern, unlearning, in quite a few books and things. It's also in the Executive Learning book. So if you want that pattern, just write to me and I'll copy and paste it to you.
I have the book, most of the books, and I will write to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Sean.
Fantastic. Yeah. So, Yudi, if you could share slide 43 for us, please, and I'll put into the chat. I think it's with everyone. The questions for the second Zoom experience. Hopefully that's came out okay. So there are several neurosemantic tools, as Michael just shared. And so for dealing with your neurological thinking, using the mind to muscle pattern is one, and another is using that ecology check on the outputs for the story that you're telling and sharing. And then the third one is cleaning up all cognitive distortions and biases. And so that's in the executive thinking area. And then the fourth neurological tool is using high quality framing and reframing. So out of these four tools and other neurosemantic tools, which do you like the most and why? So Yudi will send us back to the breakout rooms and we'll have a discussion for 10 minutes on the neurosemantic tools and which ones we like the most and why for neurological thinking.
So let's go. Oops. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Please, Sean, do you want to add something?
So, any questions from the second session around the neurological thinking tools, which you liked the most and why? Any questions from that section?
Sean, my question maybe not related to that, but what came across my mind was we talked about conscious mind and unconscious mind. Then what just came to my mind is what is about spiritual consciousness? How is that distinction with spiritual consciousness? Michael?
Michael,
You're on
sorry, you're
mute.
mute.
Can't hear you. We can't hear you, Mark.
I would put that in the meta place as one of the beliefs that we have. Because we're asking beliefs about where do we come from, where are we going, what is it all about. So it's another belief about meaning, and we classify that as spiritual, and that just means that we're talking about our essential self. It's the same kind of thinking that we do in belief thinking.
Thanks.
To add on to that question, Isra has a question in the chat, so I might just continue with that question. So the question is, to install new empowering input to the unconscious mind, should we first become aware of the unhelpful input as beliefs in order to make a change?
You would need to do that if the new material is not going in. If it's not going in, something's blocking it. Then you do the unlearning. But otherwise, you just update. Most of our new learnings just updates the old learnings. And we don't need to consciously, intentionally get rid of the old learnings. We just upgrade them. But if something is blocking and it doesn't go in, then there is a prohibition going on. And that's when we need to do the unlearning.
Okay, great. And Ronald has a question in the chat as well. We have a single mind, but with different processes operating simultaneously with different purposes.
And the answer is yes.
And so is there any other questions? Sorry, Michael.
And they work together. Conscious, unconscious aspects of our one intelligence works together so that when you know it works together, then you know that you're responsible for the outputs and the programming that goes into the neurological thinking, the body. And when you know that, then it's just a matter of taking charge of it. Then we don't have to be afraid of the unconscious. How many people are scared to death of the unconscious because they don't know what's there, they don't know what it's occurring, they don't know how it works, and it's just unnecessary fear. So we can embrace our whole self, conscious and unconscious, with this understanding.
Okay, and Jeff has one more question. So, Michael, one sign our thinking isn't aligned with reality is facing the same problem repeatedly. What other signs or situations might indicate we have a blind spot?
A blind spot may be you look around and other people can do something and they seem to do it easily and effectively, productively, and you can't. So you might have a blind spot about that. So that would be an indicator that there might be a blind spot. The best source for blind spot is asking people, be honest with me, be candid, tell me how you experience me, and what could I do to be a better person?
Okay, great. Thank you, Michael. So from here, we're going to finish probably 20 seconds early. I'm going to hand it over to Yudi to wrap up. Over to you, Yudi.
Okay, so to wrap it up, Michael, do you want to give your closing statement?
Well, it's really simple. You have an intelligence that's conscious and unconscious, and your conscious mind is your control mechanism. So embrace it, learn it, develop it, and then be the best you that you can be.
To our great unconscious mind. Thank you, Michael, for the great and very inspiring session again. And if you want to go detail, you can go to the shop and have the book about it, right? So, okay, I think that's it for today's session, and we will see you again next month. Hopefully, can really see you all again in the next month session, in the next ISNS Wisdom sessions. Thank you all. And
Okay.
oh yeah, I forget to mention there's a several leadership from institute. There's a Anthony, there's a Sean, there's a Adrian, and then
Jeanette.
Eva?
Jeanette is here.
Janet. Oh yeah, Janet. There's a Janet, and that's all.
And
There's
Joyce.
Joyce.
Oh, Joyce. Sorry,
I
Joyce.
remembered you, Joyce.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, it's fine.
That's the good thing. Have a co-host. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Good night. Good
Thanks,
evening.
man.
Good
Thanks.
afternoon.
Thank
See you
you.
all tomorrow.
Yeah.
Have a
Good to
good
see
night.
you all. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Michael.
Michael.
Thank you,
everyone.
Geraldine. Thank you, Sean.
Bye, everyone.
Nice to see
Yudi,
you
thank you.
all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Well.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.